Dzień dobry. Did I say that right? Yeah, thank you. As you can see, I'm Toni Anicic. I come from Croatia, a company called Inchoo. I've been working with Magento for 6 years now, as long as Ben Marks, so I started in October 2008. You've probably heard a lot about Inchoo during the last few presentations. We're most known for our blog, which is visited by 200,000 people per month. And most of the people, when you tell them Inchoo, think about our development services, but we actually have a team of people that we like to call Inchoo Consulting Group, where I work, who work on as e-commerce consultants, and we help our clients sell more through SEO and conversion rate optimization. And conversion rate optimization is something I'm going to talk to you about today. I'll show you some of the examples that we like to test on some of the projects we're working on, and where we've seen some great improvements, and I hope some of you will too. For start, I'd just like to ask you, how many of you, if you could raise hands, have ever implemented a simple A/B split test using any split testing software? 1, 2, 3, 4. You're lying, you didn't. Okay, so 3 of you. I'll go through some basic terminology so that everyone can understand what I'm talking about. So when we say conversion rate optimization, we usually mean A/B testing, which is also known as split testing, to establish which variation achieves more goal completions. Since it says conversion rate, many people kind of confuse the e-commerce conversion rate you see in your analytics with the conversion rate on the test. It's not the same thing, but I'll talk about that a little bit more later. So the first kind of testing you can do is A/B testing, also known as split testing. Some people think it's just variation A versus variation B, but actually you can have the whole alphabet over here. You can have variation A, B, C, D, E, F, G. It's still called A/B testing or split testing. There's a difference between A/B testing and multivariate testing, and multivariate testing looks like this. Okay, so in A/B testing, you have your visitors, and you send them to different variations of the different pages. For example, you create one type of landing page, and then you create a completely other, landing page, and you split all of your visitors to one and the other and see which one converts better. In multivariate testing, you have just one page where you test different variations of elements within that page. So you can have like several different headlines and several different images, and then your multivariate testing software will create combinations of all of those and test all of those combinations. In most cases, you will not use multivariate testing, at least not for e-commerce purposes, because this one takes a lot of time to implement and a lot of visitors to get statistically significant results. So we will mostly use this one. Okay, I'll try to explain how we approach conversion rate optimization at Inchoo in 6 simple steps. So the first step is identifying an issue or asking a question. For example, in this one particular example, we are asking ourselves, why are so many visitors exiting the website on the cart page? How do you identify issues? You can do it through user testing. You can see where your users fall off by observing them, or you can identify some trends within Google Analytics. This one could be easily identified through Google Analytics because you have a page exit metric, and you can benchmark yourself against other similar stores and see, I'm losing a lot of visitors on the cart page. What's the problem? You can then construct a hypothesis. That's step 2. Visitors are leaving to find a coupon code since they saw an apply coupon code field on the cart page. The third step is inventing treatments. So one of the treatments could be putting a how can I get a coupon code link next to the apply coupon code field will reduce the amount of website exits from the cart page. In the next step, we find the best KPI is key performance indicator, to set as goal. That's the first thing I talked to you about. It's not always the e-commerce conversion rate, because sometimes e-commerce conversion rate is too far in the funnel to track at the test level. So in this case, our best KPI would be, to reduce the amount of cart exits when we're measuring this test. Implement the test using a split testing software. There are lots of options out there. In our experience, the two things we still use are Visual Website Optimizer. Have anyone heard of Visual Website Optimizer? Raise hands. Just two people. Oh, okay. Visual Website Optimizer is very simple for merchants to use themselves, because you just need your developers to place a piece of code into the header of all pages, and you get a complete control of everything. Well, you can make mistakes, so always check with your developers if you can deploy it live. But basically, you get like what you get editor, where you can change stuff and create tests, okay? The other one is Google's Content Experiments, which is available through Google Analytics, but that one can only do tests on different pages. So you can't test within one URL. You have to create separate URLs where you can, create variation 1 in one URL and variation 2 in the another. And the last step is to analyze the data and implement conclusion. You see which one won, and you just implement it. Okay, this is how simple it was, and then came responsive web design, which kind of screwed us, because now you can't have one hypothesis and one treatment for every problem, because each of the different devices and screen sizes has its own challenges. So you have to implement separate tests for mobile, for desktop, for tablet, and for other. I'll talk about other later. Many people will look at this as screen size issue, but it's not really a screen size issue. Some tablets have really big screens, and you could possibly put a full-blown desktop version on a tablet. But that would be a mistake, because it's also about the device input type. Tablets can't do hours. Tablets can't do many things you can do with a mouse. So always test that. Okay, now the other part. I have a colleague at Inchoo who writes this comic called The Intruders. I don't know if anyone heard about it, but he has one of those other situations. I'll just give you a minute. Yeah, basically things like this happen to us in the development. People nowadays have all sorts of devices that can access internet, even their refrigerators. And you can't really optimize for each and every one of them, but if it's really like 1% of your visitors, then maybe we shouldn't. Okay, some of our experiences with A/B testing, because when you have a store, you can test like a lot of stuff, but let's try and concentrate on some of the things that will really give you some improvements, and in the end I'll show you what we achieved, some improvements on one of our clients. Checkout. I know you heard a lot of talk probably about checkout. Some of the companies that create one-step checkout extensions would like you to think that that's a solution that solves all of your problems, but it's really not. You have to test it on your own store and in your own environment and see what bugs your customers. Actually, in many tests we did, Magento's default one-page checkout outperforms most of the one-step checkout extensions. Magento's default one-page checkout extension just have one significant issue, and that's the back button. Because users perceive it as a multi-step checkout due to its accordion style. And at some point, a user might be at the shipping step and wants to go back one step, and if he hits back button, he'll go all the way back to the cart and have to re-enter everything. And that's not, a good thing. So if you fix that, you'll probably outperform any one-step checkout with default Magento's one-page checkout. You should test it. The cart page, this one's interesting. In the last few versions of Magento, there's actually a bug by default in the default theme, and you might have inherited that bug. You should check your online stores. There is a mini cart functionality. And if someone adds several items into the cart, and one of those items goes out of stock or becomes unsellable for any other reason, the mini cart will not display the go to cart and checkout buttons. So user will be stuck, not knowing what's going on. He has items in cart and he can't proceed anywhere. Check your stores. Product relations, those are your related products, upsells, cross-sells, and their recommendations. In Magento Enterprise Edition, there is automated product relation rules. You can set different kinds of rules and play around what gets recommended on your related products or upsells or cross-sells. And there are many third-party providers of product recommendations. We tested Fortel, I think, recently. Yeah, basically, when you're dealing with this stuff, don't give up on the first test, because all of those systems have a lot of configurations you can set. When we tested Fortel against Magento's default related products, we ran 5 tests until we made Fortel perform better than default related products. On product pages, you might want to try test, to remove a little bit of clutter and remove those social sharing icons. I know everyone adds them, but if you notice, most of the products don't get tweeted and liked on Facebook, and it just provides some negative social proof, and they just stand there. Navigation, you want to test what goes into main navigation. For example, I've seen stores that have certain products that make like 50% of their sales. Like there's one product that's so important for this store that it makes 50% of the sales, but that product is not in the main navigation because they look at the main navigation as a category-based navigation, and he can't put the product in there. It makes no sense. Well, it does. It does. If it's 50% of your sales, put that product into main navigation. Category pages are really easy to test with split testing software. That's why it makes sense, to test it, because it takes very little time. You can test how many products to show per page, ascending, descending by price, stuff like that. See which works best for your customers. You will run into some problems with your SEO guys when you start doing conversion rate optimization. Luckily, most of the modern conversion rate optimization software solve a lot of these issues by default. But if you do it on your own, try not to screw it up and consult your SEOs. Some of the things where conversion rate optimization and SEO can clash is, for example, the stuff you put on the homepage. You can test like an awesome homepage that just, gets you a lot of conversion improvements, but from the SEO point of view, it screws you. Because some headings over there you lose ranking for something you had because you changed it, but it's better for the users. It's not as good for the search engines. Same thing goes for example, default layer navigation. Users love it. You have to no index it for Google or you get in trouble. And let me show you what you can achieve. This is year-over-year growth for one of our largest clients. This is done through conversion rate optimization with everything I just told you. There were lots of tests. This was not one simple test. And some SEO. So we improved the conversion rate by 37%, brought in some more traffic using SEO. And this resulted in a revenue improvement of almost 50%. Now, this is not some small mom and pop store. We're talking millions and millions of pounds. And this is done in less than a year. Any questions?
What kind of tool do you use for A/B testing? Some tool or console?
For implementing the A/B tests, I told you it's Visual Website Optimizer, and it's Google's Content Experiments, which is available through your Google Analytics. Any other questions?
So you say that the conversion rate optimization can affect the SEO?
Yeah, it can't affect it positively, but you can, have negative applications, yeah.
Is it a solution if you use, for example, JavaScript? For example, you show the content, you keep the content, the HTML that you set for the search engines? And can you do something with JavaScript when you present it? Is this fine for the search engines or not? So to manipulate the content when it's rendered.
I understand what you're saying. Most of the software that you use, for example, the Visual Website Optimizer, will solve that issue for you by default. It will, no index the version that's a variation and stuff like that. Where you run into problems is when you conclude that a certain variation is better for your conversion rate, but it's actually worse for your SEO. So you end up having more conversions, but less traffic. And then you have to calculate, did I get more revenue in the end by having better conversion rate, but lower traffic?
With responsive design, typically on how many devices do you test do the experiments?
That's a very good question. We have around, I don't know, maybe 30 devices at the company, right? Give or take, around 30 different devices. But you can see within your Google Analytics like everything your users are using, and you can see if certain devices have issues. Like you just go into the device area and see if certain device has like a lot of visitors but zero conversion rate, there's probably an issue over there, and then you try and use it.
And what are top 5 priority devices, or top 3? Okay, top 3 devices for which you optimize the pages.
I think that depends on the market you're working on. So for example, in some places Android is very, very popular. For example, in Croatia, there's, I don't know, it's like 90% are Android device. Somewhere else, there's 50% of iOS. So you have to, know the market you're working in and use the most common devices that are used in that market.
What tools do you use for responsive for various resolutions?
For implementing tests in various resolutions. Yeah. Visual Website Optimizer can handle it in 2 ways. You can, for example, create completely separated tests for certain resolutions or for certain devices, or you can create one test and choose how the variations will behave depending on the resolution and device type. And there's like a browse interface where you see what you're doing, so it's pretty cool.
So it's more or less configurable in the same software.
Yeah. Anyone else? Well, thank you.